Welcome to the Rugby Bits podcast, and we have just finished the first week of Champions Cup and Challenge Cup rugby. We've had sevens in Cape Town. We are in full speed with the rugby season now. A good weekend for South African teams on a large, positive performances, mostly positive results as well, and also surprisingly good weekend for the Premiership and English rugby as well. My name is Thala. I am joined by Shaun today. We are going to go through this first weekend of Champions Cup rugby and Challenge Cup rugby. Shaun, yeah, I think at least in general, pretty much all the South African teams, including the Cheetahs and even the Stormers who lost, I think should be happy about their performance on the weekend.
Yes, they've all got something very positive to pull out of it, and it's not only their wins. I know the Stormers didn't win, but they were fighting way outside of their weight category. They pushed Leicester all the way. Incredible. I watched bits and pieces of it. I couldn't watch the whole. I was swapping between games. That was great. Cheetahs did well. Lions, Jordan Hendricks is back. Sharks put on a big score. Yeah, everyone can be happy, you know. Bulls obviously dominated Saracens. So good all round for the South Africans.
Yeah, maybe the only negatives on a South African rugby viewpoint is the two sevens teams, but we'll talk about that a little bit later. Let's start with the game at Loftus. The Bulls winning 27-16 against Saracens. I think it was almost like the typical big Bulls game that you want when they play in the Highveld against an overseas team, is for them to dominate territory and possession, to be running, and to continue to run all the time. They're making the opposition tackle, and they're the ones off their feet, and then the gaps will open up and the tries will be scored. And yeah, the Bulls were in rampaging fashion on Saturday. Like, I think the person who's become even more of a superstar, but even more so than he was maybe before this weekend, is Cameron Hanekom, it just seems like he's just growing week by week in terms of how much people are rating him.
Yeah, he's good, eh? There's no doubt about it. I think it was Rugby also tweeted this week saying that when Cameron Hanekom broke onto the scene, he was doing all the sexy stuff, but now we're watching him do all the real hard graft and good sort of the good values you look for in an eighth man. So yeah, he picked I highlighted it last week. I was quite interested in watching, because obviously the two eights were two very different style players, but not thinking that he outplayed Vunipola in a tight game. It was more that the Bulls as a whole just were incredible. They went out and blew Saracens out of the water early. Saracens didn't know where to go, and you know, as we suspected, Saracens were really hunting points in this game because, you know, they've sent all the big boys down. They were banking on a win, and knew it would be hard work, but they got done in. They got done in by the Bulls, and the Bulls were incredible.
Yeah, I think there's not much you can say that's negative about the Bulls' performance. They dominated all the attacking stats, 34 defenders beaten to 10, 7 clean breaks to 3. It's their players, the Hanekoms, the Erich Lows, the Arenses, the Kanan Moody's that are dominating all the attacking stats. Defensively, they did pretty well. I think maybe in the second half they started leaking too many penalties and got a bit ill-disciplined as Saracens started keeping the ball and attacking a bit more. But on the other hand, by that time, the game was pretty much over because Saracens were making so many more tackles than the Bulls did. They had to make 116 tackles to the Bulls 97. Their tackle success was 70%. Saracens, that is. They had 3 cards in the game as well. Thought the Vunipola red card was a bit harsh, but maybe we can talk about that later. Yeah, so they were always on the back foot, and you could see near the end of the game, a lot of them were sucking diesel at the end, and obviously the Highveld effect, not something that, the English rugby players or the Saracens rugby players would be too used to. So they really struggled near the end of the game. So the Bulls know if they can start hard and fast, it's less likely that a team can try to make a comeback against them because of the altitude factor.
Yeah. That was the thing. I mean, if you look at this backline, Ivan van Zyl, Owen Farrell, Sean Maitland, Nick Tompkins, Elliot Daly, Alex Lewington, and Alex Good, those are top quality players, but they really were struggling. They were struggling to come to terms with stuff. Like, it's Deer in the Headlights comes to mind, but not in a bad way. Just in that they were constantly, just every time they looked up, something was coming at them. Like, it was all happening all the time, and it was brilliant by the Bulls and by Jake White to pick them off like that. And yeah, it was just when they got a foothold in the game, it was long gone. I mean, it was 26 at halftime. Yeah, and when the Saracens, there was a little twinkle of a possible comeback, something that may have earned them losing bonus points at one stage. Maybe, you're thinking about it, but yeah, it was too little, too late. And then when the Bulls got that fright, they managed to get stuck into it. Yeah, it was very interesting. I will say, I know we're talking about the cards and stuff. I thought Elliot Daly was very lucky not to be red carded, purely because he would have received a second yellow card. He, after his first yellow, there was an intentional knockdown in the tackle. And I think he kind of got away with it because he got carded before. They didn't review it or anything like that. Ref wave play on straight away, but they very easily could have been down to 40 men a lot earlier, which would have made it even worse.
Yeah, I think there's not too much Saracens should be too disappointed about. I mean, this has happened to many a team going up to Loftus as well, just getting blown out quite early in the game, and just realizing, all the effort you have to put in order to try and win a game, like in Pretoria. The only question now is how much does that affect them going forward in like the following games. Now they have to fly back. Their whole first team squad obviously came here pretty much. They have to now fly back to England. They're playing Connacht. I mean, that's a really good team as well. Players will be tired. Yeah, it's going to be I think it's going to have to be a big effort for them to win that game next week. On the Bulls side, I think there's two combinations that are just cooking at the moment. It's the loose forwards and it's the back three. The back three obviously combined, or at least two of the back three combined really well for that try that Moody scored. Arendse making the break and then getting it to Caden Moody. Like, those two just find each other everywhere. Vinny LaRue
Can I just interrupt you there?
Things. Go on.
That Owen Farrell chase and ankle tap was incredible. It was he didn't look fast. You know when someone's running and they look fast, like Farrell didn't look fast. I'm like, he's still going, like, well done. And then he dives and puts that ankle tap in. I was like, no ways. It was flipping brilliant. And then Moody, just obviously there was no one else around, but yes, it was what an effort.
Yeah, I thought he was done. I thought once the break was gone and Owen was chasing, I was like, Owen, you can give up. It's fine. It's Kanan.
You know that dive. You know that dive you make so you can tell the coaches in the review that I did make an effort. I thought he was just doing one of those, and then he got a flipping hand. I was like, yo.
Yeah, no, I think he did really well to even keep up there. And Faz, I think, at least defensively, had a pretty good game, although things were going crazy around them. Sidebar, I don't know if Tompkins and Daly were, I don't know, maybe just, I mean, Daly plays everywhere for Saracens, but defensively, they just were getting sucked in a bit too much in some of the backline moves that the Bulls had. Shaun, I think the Bulls, I mean, the back three is great. The Bulls backline as a whole, I think they're attacking really well right now, and they're just in such good form. It's, I mean, there's other, quality players that you could maybe make arguments for coming into the team one time or another, but it looks like this is the combination that's working for them right now. David Creel just gives them some extra playmaking. He was obviously, for his try, was on the wing, and he's played many times on the wing the past few years. Quison's playing well. I think he gets that Villy LaRue boost of having that additional playmaker with him. Obviously, we know how good Arendse and Moody are. Stephen Gans is playing really well. Emrys Papier is directing things from 9. Like, that's a backline that's in good form right now.
Very good. They're incredible. I thought Villy LaRue had a very good game as well. When he picked up that ball just before it went out, and then he stepped going back towards the line. I can't remember who stepped, but he absolutely destroyed the oncoming man. But that back line is looking good. To be fair, if you look at that starting lineup, you probably wouldn't change anyone. There's really, like, you could look at Swanepoel and Ludwig and Gans and maybe say that, like the only reason why you'd be iffy about them is purely because you haven't seen them enough. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that they need to be swapped out. I'm just saying they're guys that are like you're not so familiar with. Stedman Gans has been brilliant at 13. I've actually always liked him at 13. I don't know. I'm trying to think what happened. I know he got dropped a couple of times. I didn't think he was playing too badly, but that seems to have been settled now. He's obviously picked up his game to be, starting the whole time. And then, I mean, the Bulls they've just got players to just recycle in the forwards and in the backs. Maybe the backs not so much, but their back line, if they stay fit, are probably going to start every single big game, and they're probably going to dominate most of those games.
Yeah, and I think the other big thing to take away from this game is just the importance of home ground advantage. I think in this competition, if the Bulls can, build on this, I mean, we know that. Well, we can talk about it now. I'm sure they're going to probably pick a second string team to go to Lyon this weekend. But if they could top their pool and have a home last 16, a home quarter-final game, it's. I don't think, apart from maybe the likes of Leinster and Toulouse and La Rochelle, I don't really back any other overseas team beating them in Pretoria. Like, it's just such a big, it's an even bigger home ground advantage that they have that other teams just don't have access to. And when the Bulls play that, they almost have a Loftus mode of playing where they're just constantly running. They have the forwards just coming around the corner the whole time and just, battering whoever's defending or around the fringes. They have obviously the backline players that can just, run and run and run. They have the ability to kick the ball far. They are accurate, at least in the line out. Scrum didn't have had a few issues, but mostly accurate there as well. Like, it's a hard proposition for them, for an opposition team. So yeah, home ground advantage. If the Bulls want to go far, they have to try to make sure that they get a good first place or second place in that pool.
Yeah. There's only two things that could probably unravel the Bulls right now, if they're in a knockout, would be if they hadn't properly been able to sort of rest up and balance the squad, which I believe Jake White is perfectly capable of doing. But, sometimes when you rest up teams or squads and multiple players, it hiccups a little bit in that you lack a bit of continuity. But that's one. And the other thing for me, if I had to think about a side that could undo them at Loftus in a knockout game, if it was a big French side, like maybe a Racing or a Toulouse. I know we always talk about how they don't travel well, but they could also go to Loftus and just be completely, like, in inverted commas, ignorant to what it means. Like, the stadium doesn't mean much to them. Not like it means to many people who play there often and get beaten. So that could be the one. I think a big French side, they've got to try and avoid one of them just for the round of 16. I think if they win that one and start getting settled, I think they'll be okay after that.
Yeah, I think they've set themselves up well. We did talk about that if they lost Saturday's game, it might be a situation where they're already fighting for their lives in the next round. But they've set themselves up well. Any points they get in Lyon, I think, will be a bonus. Maybe they can just at least try to get a bonus point. I think they should still have a relatively fine side. At least I think someone like Marcel Coetzee can probably play there since he hasn't played much rugby. You put in the Chris Smiths and the Zach Burgers, etc., etc. You should have at least a decent team there and see whatever points you can get there. And they're set up well. That Stormers Bulls game in 2 weeks' time looks absolutely mouth-watering. And yeah, I mean, we'll have a lot of time to talk about it next week. But that Hanekom Rus, who's the new trendy 8 that we all like, battle is going to be box office alone.
Yeah, well, it will be, but I think both of them will really benefit, and they always will, but from the Leicester and how the balance is working there. Right now you can't look past the Bulls at the moment. There's some big boys doing some really, really good things. Interestingly enough, the Bulls are, even though it was a fairly good win, they didn't bag of bonus points. So I know it was against Saracens, so it's a good win nonetheless. But they are still sitting there. Well, they are only third on the group, with Lyon like a point or two behind them. So it would be a win against Lyon would be important. A loss with no bonus points of any sort would actually like put them quite low down. So it would be big for them. They must win. This is the whole thing. This is the whole balance around Europe and your domestic competition. It's wild.
Yeah, we'll see what happens this week. But yeah, I think people that are preparing themselves to see Cameron Hanekom and Lyon, I think you probably won't see him this weekend. You'll probably see some of the non-first team Bulls players playing there. Let's move to the Leicester Stormers game. As we talked about earlier, Stormers gave a very good account of themselves and actually arguably unlucky to lose 35 points to 26, not even getting a bonus point, and Leicester somehow getting 5 points from this game. I don't think that's a fair reflection of what happened in the game. Fantastic first half from the Stormers. They're able to put the Tigers under a lot of pressure and were making the running of it. And then Leicester, I think, just turned on, executed a lot better, like with things like their maul and their set piece, and players obviously like, the Pollards, the Wieses, then stood up for them. Shaun, at least from the Stormers side, a lot is encouraging, especially with regards to, them building depth. Like there's a lot of players that played pretty well, the likes of Sithole, obviously he's now come into the team. Keke Morabe took his try really well from 8th man. Matthee had a good debut there in the Champions Cup. Kosan showed that he still has that class. Paul de Vet had a really good game. Like there's a lot there that, we know how long the season is, and the Stormers can be encouraged that they have, at least some depth going into, the rest of the competition.
Yeah, massive. This is almost exclusively a brand new starting lineup, and what an unbelievable effort away from home. It was great. I watched bits and pieces of it. It was really good to see. I actually didn't watch the game because I really expected Leicester to walk them early. I kept having to go back. I mean, I thought it was all squared half time. It wasn't. It was the Stormers were leading because of that try just towards the end. So yeah, very impressive. And the thing is now, in this situation, I see the Stormers maybe a year behind the Bulls in terms of being competitive in both competitions. We didn't see a lot of new guys. We didn't see a lot of this last year for the Stormers. I don't recall anyway. But the most important thing about it is that the Stormers went away to Leicester and then were dominant I wouldn't say dominant, but they were in control for large parts of the game. I mean, they put Leicester Tigers like into a little bit of a worried space for a large period of the game. So yeah, very good effort, and it looks great for the Stormers moving forward.
Yeah, I'm not sure which player whose stocks have risen the most from the Stormers. I think there's a lot of candidates, but yeah, I think just that try from Morabe, I think that will speak a lot for him. I mean, it's not like the Stormers are struggling for 8th men and struggling for players that can attack with ball in hand with the likes of Ruiz and Daimani, but it's nice to know that with Keke Morabe, they do have someone else that can put into that position as well. He's still young. He's, I think, 22 at the moment. So he can also just be added to the long, you shake a tree, there's always a quality loose ball in South Africa, but he can be added to the depth that the Stormers have. Now, Makaba has come back well into this level of rugby after pretty much missing the whole season last season. We know that Willie Engelbrecht has been someone that's been in and out of the senior team. Okomela's someone that has been a contributor in the last 2 seasons. Like, you know that the Stormers are sorted. With their loose trio, their scrum, I think, held up pretty well considering you're up against, the English first choice tight head and Dan Cole. Joe Hayes comes in the second half. Experienced hooker like Julie Montoya's in there. I think the forwards can, take a lot of credit from their performance. The backs, maybe, yeah. If there was maybe an opportunity, if maybe they should have taken someone like Dan du Plessis at 12 instead of Jean-Luc du Plessis, and give him a bit of game time. But obviously, they're trying to get him sort of prepared for the game this weekend. But yeah, there's a lot I think that the Stormers should be pretty positive about. They really had, I think, control of the game for 50, 60 minutes. They were in the fight, and then Leicester just turned up with the rolling maul, with the scrums, and then the gap started appearing. And Solomon Kata, I think he was the biggest beneficiary of having two tens in the midfield for this weekend's game.
Yeah, he's pretty handy. But I think for the Stormers in the stocks rising department, I think Sithole definitely put his hand up, and Jurie Matthee. I mean, excuse me, but I didn't really know much of him, and he didn't look out of place, which is wild. That was pretty good. Interestingly, Leicester, I thought, very interestingly enough, Handré Liebenberg, he made one mistake in that game, one glaring mistake where there was a try on and he didn't pass it. I think that, I can't remember when that was, but I think that would have changed the landscape significantly. The other is Tommy Turnover was really not in the game. Jasper Wiese was there and thereabouts, but Tommy Rafael, we are so used to him dominating, and he was kept very, very quiet. So it was interesting. Handré Pollard, another great game off the tee, but the standard miss to touch off a penalty was there. I don't know if you saw it, Thala, but it happened, and I had a little quiet chuckle. But we can't say anything bad about Handré anymore because we were all very wrong when it came in for the World Cup. Well, we were trying to just quietly let everyone know that, like, it's not going to be like, just chill. It's not going to be crazy. And then he was the best of the best ever. So we can't badmouth Handré anymore.
Yeah, I think also just with the Liebenberg point, I mean, he was the one that missed the tackle on Morabe. I mean, 5 meters out. It's a tricky one to make, but yeah. He, but I mean, otherwise, he had a decent game. I think you're right, Shaun, about Rafael. I mean, I only was able to watch like highlights and stuff, but he wasn't, as we know how good Rafael can be usually in these games, and he wasn't that person. We know how great Jasper Wiese is for this team. I did like with the Leicester backline, their wings looked great. I mean, Ollie Hassel-Collins is obviously a young, talented player that's been knocking on the door for England for a while. I love Josh Bassett. I mean, I think he had a really good game himself.
Big guy, huh?
He's a big guy.
Yeah, he looks big, but he's quite good. I'm actually quite a big fan of him. I think, you know what I mean? He's not going to set the world alight, but he's always going to be there, and he's always going to do his job, and he's going to do a good job. So I think he flies under the radar a little bit often.
You can see he is like, because I think the first time I watched him or saw bits of him was in that Villy LaRue, Kirtley Beale Wasps team a few years ago, and he didn't like play every week, but he would be someone that would be put into weighing and all that sort of stuff. And he just seemed like a good, intelligent footballer that knew where he needed to be, what he needed to do, and obviously he's a good finisher, as we saw this weekend. So yeah, he played really well. Kata, I think that's a really good signing for Leicester. I'm trying to think what the other options are at 12. Dan Kelly, I guess. Yeah. So
Handré Pollard.
I mean, well, yeah. Is Jimmy Coppeth still here?
He might have retired. I don't know. Jimmy Gops went to France. I will tell you now where he went.
I think to a league, Pro D2 club, if I'm not mistaken.
He went to D2 side, but he went to France. I think he left them. But I'm trying to think where. I'm trying to think who else they've got at 12. I can't for the life of me think right now. So I can't find where Jimmy Goppeth went.
Yeah, I can only think of Kelly. But yeah, I think Kata is just a really good player. It wasn't used like that, or at least in the games that I saw of Exeter last season. But yeah, he made a massive impact today. Oh yeah, Guy Porter. He's also an option for Leicester.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they really just exposed that Matthee, du Plessis, Hartzenberg is probably not the biggest 10, 12, 13-year find defensively. So they played really well there. And look, Leicester still should have a lot more players coming back into this team. That's far from their best team. the likes of Martin and the younger Chesson brother, like they'll bolster the pack as well. So I think for Leicester, at least they got out of it with 5 points. They should, they should be satisfied that, even if they were tested and they maybe should have won this by more, they did get themselves out of a sticky situation and came through actually pretty well at the end. Obviously, with 5 points, I think they're second on the log. Oh no, they're top of the log actually, in their pool. So it's a pretty positive result for them, all things considered.
Yeah, they needed that 5 point. Well, to take a 5 point win out of that game is great for them as a unit. Even though it was a fight at home, I think moving forward in the Champions Cup, also, I mean, obviously their experience in knockout games in the past shows, but I think as a unit, this result, getting the 5 points, is huge for them. It's more than just the 5 points that we see on the log.
Yeah, especially in this group of death. They've got Stade, they're going to Paris this weekend. They should actually try to win that game. I mean, Stade, it's a good team, but I think it's a team that you could sneak a result against. And if they win that, and knowing that they still have La Rochelle to visit them and all that sort of stuff, I think they feel quite good about their chances.
Yeah, they must win this weekend. And I agree with you with regards to Stade in terms of like you can get a win. They're good at the moment, but you'll probably find they'll kind of reevaluate things a little bit already so soon, and I'm fairly confident they'll be focusing heavily on the top 14. I don't think they've got a squad to go deep in the Champions Cup yet, so they're kind of going to have to figure out quite early how much they want to commit to it. And it's going to be interesting, but they are playing at home, which is obviously a different baby. The home ground for the French sides is a fortress, and they have to win those more than anything. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I do see Leicester winning that.
And then the Stormers, they've obviously got La Rochelle this weekend. It's effectively a must-win game for both teams, arguably. La Rochelle, I don't think they'll be eliminated. They'll be under a lot of pressure if they don't win. But if La Rochelle, I mean, the way that La Rochelle's won the last few Champions Cups is they usually play most of their knockout games at home. So yeah, the getting a win in Cape Town would be quite important to them. And then on the other hand, for the Stormers, they need to get some points on the board. They've pretty much put all their chips into trying to win this game this weekend. So that's going to be an epic game if La Rochelle decide to play all their, or at least most of their first team players. So yeah, I think for both teams, the team that loses will be under a lot of pressure because I think the result for Sale, when they beat Stade, I think it does put some pressure on the other teams because Leicester's now probably fine. I mean, they won their hardest match already. Leicester Tigers, if they win against Stade, should be fine as well. And Sale, I mean, they obviously, at least for me, they look a lot better than I thought they would. So now La Rochelle and Stormers would feel very uncomfortable if they're on 1 or 2 points after this weekend.
Yeah, and Sale didn't seem to name their strongest team either. So I think there's more there. But you're 100% right. The pressure is squarely on the Stormers. Whether La Rochelle send like a full strength side, I think they might send a mix. They could probably still claw it back if they lose, but the pressure is squarely on the Stormers because of the decision that they made in what team to send away last week. So they've kind of done that with the eye on taking 5 points or taking a win and hopefully 5 points against La Rochelle. But it's in Cape Town at the Cape Town Stadium, and Stormers are a dream there. It's also a brand new pitch. The Stormers haven't played there yet this season, have they?
No. They've made Donny Craven a home for themselves.
Yeah, new pitch, looking good. So we're all talking about how they needed to change the pitch to help their scrums. So it's got to work this weekend. And La Rochelle don't have a shit pack.
Steven Kitsoff must be so pissed that he had to play on the motocross and what do we call it? Monster truck pitch the last few seasons, and not
And
this.
now he's
It looked really
gone to
good.
Ireland. He's gone to Ireland and he plays on Mud Island. It's even worse there.
He must be so unhappy. But I'm sure Francois Lab, on the other hand, is he'll be licking his lips. If it is Malhoba and Wardi and Antonio coming this weekend, it's going to be a good test for that pitch on Saturday. We can then report whether the pitch and the relaying of the grass has worked or not.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good game, possibly the game of the weekend, but all depends on who La Rochelle send.
Sidebar, I mean, the pitch got another kind of test this weekend. Did you see what happened with the celebrations after the two finals?
In the pool.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely world class. I loved it.
It was hilarious. I'm glad no one got injured, because that would have been a
Sheesh.
massive epic fail. But yeah, that you just saw people going in and in that video, and you're like, oof, is this pool gonna able to hold it? And then it clearly was not able to hold, 10 to 15 rugby players all coming into it.
Exactly. Yeah, that would have. Oh, thank goodness nothing happened, as you say. But it was good fun to watch, and everyone in, and the RGs love to celebrate. So it would have been like
Mm.
double time in there. So it was good fun though.
Okay, I think what we're going to do is just go through all of the games. We'll have one or two quick comments here and there. Friday, we started with Glasgow losing to Northampton. Northampton winning 28 points to 19 and starting off a great weekend for the Premiership. Shaun, I don't think I think we all predicted a Glasgow win. So yeah, this Northampton win is quite surprising. Tommy Freeman played pretty well. Courtney Laws was fantastic. Yeah, this was a big surprise, I think.
Yeah, it was. I mean, compared to what we were thinking, but it was also because Glasgow are playing at home, and
Mm.
but Saints dominated. Tommy Freeman was cooking, and as you mentioned, Courtney Laws also had a great game. So it's a I think Glasgow expected more out of it. You can understand that they could lose to Saints. You can understand that, but I think they got blown out of the water where that in a way that
Mm.
they didn't really expect it. So it is back to the drawing board in a small way for them. They're going to have to start working their side a little bit more, like naming possibly um, a better, stronger side and just working through it. But they've got all the work to do now for the rest of the Champions Cup.
Yeah. Shout out to Angus Scott Young making 27 tackles
Legend.
on Friday night for Northampton. I mean, yeah, he's I think he played for the Reds. He was a blindside flank in those days, or still is now, of course. But geez, 27 tackles is a ridiculous number. I mean, we know from the World Cup final, making that number of tackles, you're pretty much up and down tackling people every minute.
Yeah, and there's so much more happening in the game as well. And that we're just talking about tackles. I mean, it was flipping impressive.
Then we go to the next game. Connacht got a bit of a pasting from Bordeaux, 41 points to 5. I think this might be my most impressive performance of the weekend by a team. Bordeaux just absolutely thrashing Connacht at home. Never an easy place to win there. Yeah, I mean, the big boys for Bordeaux all came out to play. The likes of Pinot, I think it seemed like Maxine Luku had a good game from what I
Yeah.
read. Spili Falatea was the man of the match as well. Yeah, Shaun, I mean, obviously we've talked many times about the French teams and their attitude to this competition. Obviously, Bordeaux has invested into the team with bringing someone like Damien Pinot into it, but it's not like they played, their ultimate, their strongest team, and them getting a win like that against Bordeaux, I mean against Connacht at an Ireland, that's a big warning sign for the rest of the competition.
Massive. It's great. It's great for them as a unit going into back into the top 14 in a week and a bit's time. But yeah, I think the big thing, Mac Hansen going off injured, like after 20 minutes, it was wild. Bundy Aki made his return, but I think Bordeaux, they were just a lot smoother in everything. They did well. Their front row did really well, and then at when they had to make changes, they brought on Big Ben and Kolisadi, you know. So like as a front ranking, as a front row, they've got the goods there. So everything was built on that, and then they had the backline just really doing the job. I thought Matthee Jalibert was pretty decent, but Damien Penaud was everywhere, just absolute psycho, just all over the show. And Connacht got crunched. Like, this is a proper hiding.
Yeah. I mean, Connacht is just like one of those teams. They're almost like the domestic or like the club version of like an Argentina. Like, just when you think, okay, there's something building, then they'll take a few losses. And just when you think, okay, maybe you don't need to have that much hope in them, then they start going on a run. So that is a little bit disappointing because they looked really good. I mean, they had a really good win in Durban. I mean, okay, maybe the Sharks aren't the best team in the world, but still a big win away. Got all of their Irish players back. And yeah, that's 541 is never a good result. Next game was Exeter beating Toulon. Also a big surprise, Exeter winning in France, 19 points to 18. Yeah, Shaun, again, another game that I think is a big surprise for at least myself and probably a lot of other people. I mean, Exeter, this is almost supposed to be like their rebuilding and reset year after losing a lot of their big senior players. And that's a massive, massive result to get against, obviously, one of the classic powerhouses in European rugby.
Yeah. I'm embarrassed to say that I missed it. I missed Slade knocking over the kick. I thought Toulon had won the game. I swapped over to watch the end of the other game, and I looked down at my app, and I was like, "Oh no, there's a mistake here. There must be something wrong." So I went back and I had a look at it. It was flipping, yeah. What a comeback, man! Jacques Vermeulen scoring, and then Henry Slade puts a kick over. But I don't know if you saw it. So Vermeulen scored on the 15-meter, like the line-out line, not 15 meters in from field. And Slade took it about 4 or 5 meters, set up, and then the ref's like, no, move it over. Went back and then still slotted it. But yeah, I thought Charles Olivon had a decent-ish game. It's really hard. Like, the guys, Melvin Jamine made his return to, in inverted commas, home. Gabin Villiers, pretty decent. But Toulon looked like they had it sewn up. They really looked like in control. And it shows, if you don't stay switched on all the time against almost any professional side, like you will bleed. And sometimes you'll manage to get back in the groove and sort it out. And other times you'll lose. And what a massive result for the Chiefs. And as you say, they're kind of rebuilding, and they're not as competitive as they used to be. But this is a massive way to sort of kind of make a statement.
Yeah, and there's a lot of implications, I think, for that pool as well. That's a big unexpected game. It puts, I think, Toulon under a lot of pressure for what they need to do now, obviously conceding a game away from home. And they play their best team, Toulon, or at least close to their best team. So it's definitely not a result that they were expecting. And now, we're going to talk about the other surprise results in that pool. I mean, I think arguably the 3 surprise results all happened in this pool. Maybe let's move on to let's wait for it. But yeah, the Glasgow Northampton game was in this pool. The Toulon Exeter game was in this pool. The Munster Bayonne game was in this pool. So yeah, just a bit of chaos there in that third pool. Let's move to Bath Ulster. They thrashed Ulster. Bath thrashed Ulster 37 points to 14. They continue their form in the Premiership. I think it probably speaks more about, I mean, Bath is playing really well, yes, but I think it just speaks more about Ulster. Just, they seemed like at least 2 seasons ago that they were like the team that was on the up in Ireland and in the URC, but now it's just underwhelming every week from them. And even a world-class player like Stephen Kitsoff is not going to fix it for them, unfortunately. But on the other hand, I mean, Bath, having the likes, signing a Finn Russell, having Ollie Lawrence playing really well right now, dangerous backline, their forwards are playing really well. They've got Alfie Barbary back as well. Like, Iwan van Gaan should be pretty happy about where the team is right now.
Yeah. I mean, Bath took a lead, a light one. They took an 8-0 lead, but then Ulster came back and led 14-8 at the break, or 8-14. But then after that, it was just all Bath. But interesting, when Van Graan took over, Bath were often like just dominating in the first half and then being very leaky on defense in the second half. And things are turning for them. They're starting to build a good foundation. They can score lots of points in the first half and they don't really go to sleep in the second half. But this time they scored the 8 points. I mean, it was relatively early. Their try was scored in the 27th minute. And then I think their penalty was just after that, maybe the 30th minute or so. But then they turned it on in the second half. So it's like flip from what they were doing in a couple of years ago. So this is massive for them. Another very important fact is that Thomas du Toit scored again for them. I think he's the leading try scorer in Bath this season at the moment. He scores whenever he comes on. So, yeah, massive result. I mean, 37-14, that's huge. Against Ulster, as you say, are a side that we used to being dominant. Like, it was always between Ulster and Munster, who were the second best side in Ireland. But Ulster are really struggling. Like, it's sad. And we'll see how it pans out for the rest of the season. But I don't think it's going to go well for them.
Yeah, I think there's just certain things are just not happening for them. I don't know, like it just doesn't seem like the team is playing to their potential right now, or maybe they overplayed to their potential 2 seasons ago. But I think you expect a lot more from a team that has, a Kitsoff, Henderson, Nick Timoney, Stockdale, McCloskey, a Balakoon, a James Hugh. Yeah, so maybe it is, there's, I think, a lot of people in Ireland that maybe don't want Billy Burns to play 10 for them, and maybe to try and give someone else a try there. But yeah, something is not quite happening for them, unfortunately. And they'll probably have another disappointing season in Europe and in the URC if it continues like this. The next game is then Toulouse thrashing Cardiff. I don't think there's too much to be said about this. Yeah, just typical Toulouse, just probably not even out of fourth gear or third or fourth gear and doing what they do. This sevens player called Antoine Dupont got 100 meters in the game.
Pretty handy.
Beat a few defenders. He's pretty decent. He should make a transfer to 15s, I think, once he's done in the Olympics. But yeah, nothing too much to be said about Toulouse, I think, at this stage, except for Blake Ingle making his debut for Toulouse.
And scoring 2. Had a good game at 15, but Antoine Dupont really, really cooked. It was Toulouse. It was the kind of game that I think they really needed, but also wanted. You want a nice, easy start in. They haven't had the best of time in the top 14, and they've got to kind of get the machine rolling again, nice, well oiled, and all that sort of stuff. So, if I'm not mistaken, it's also, does Dupont not leave this week or next week?
I think he plays this game and then he leaves.
Yeah, and that's it. So, they'll do well without him. But they're going to have to show how they can change things up and who's going to manage things. But yeah, they dominated and Cardiff just couldn't hold on.
Yeah, Harlequins versus Toulouse next week will be mouth-watering. Then the draw between Munster and Bayonne. Shaun, what happened there?
Yeah, I don't know. I was watching the Bull Saracens game because Munster were going to dominate. That's how I had things in my head. But it was, I think Munster had a 14-0 lead. Did they not? No, No, they didn't. They were 14-3 up. But yeah, wow, what a game. But I actually don't have the numbers on me right now. But 3 of the Bayonne forwards, I can't remember who they were, each made 23 tackles. 3 of them made 23 tackles each. Unbelievable defensive effort. Jack Crowley did have a drop goal attempt that he missed. So, Munster were pushing hard for the win. But I think biggest thing to take out of this is that it's an absolutely incredible result for Bayonne. What an unbelievable thing for them away from home as well. That's the big thing. I keep saying, and we also used to the French sides being so shit away from home, but wow, we couldn't say it this year in the Champions Cup.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't have said Bayonne would be the team that would, cause a big surprise like this away from home. They have a team that's pretty much built for completely not giving a damn about the top 14 and about the Champions Cup and focusing their efforts on the top 14. But yeah, a massive result for them to come back and to get 2 points from this game. Just quickly, shout out to Thomas Aaron. He's playing amazingly at 6 at the moment.
Oh.
Munster must have the most flanks that could play, or locks that could play flanks in the world right now, and they're all just absolutely cooking right now. So if it's not Omani that's playing at 6, it's Aaron. If it's not Aaron, it can be Byrne. Like, they've got so many options there, and they are all playing really well. So I think Byrne was actually the man of the match in this game. So I think Aaron is actually making some noise, and he's showing his potential. He's still a young player. I think he wants to be part of the Irish setup in the next few months. And then just on the log for this pool, I think I mentioned it earlier that is a bit of a chaos pool. But now Northampton and Exeter are first and second after winning their games. And now in the middle is Bayonne and Munster after they drew, and Toulon and Glasgow at the bottom. So this there's all to play for in that pool. Like, a lot can still happen, especially with the surprise victories. Both for Northampton and Exeter were away victories. So, and Bayonne obviously not allowing Munster to win at home. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of teams that are going to be under pressure this week. And for Munster, they're going to Exeter now, and they probably have to get a win there. For Toulon, they're going all the way to Northampton on Friday, and they also have to get a win. And if either Munster or Toulon don't win, it's looking very scary for them in terms of making the last 16.
Yeah, it's there's so much happening. This is the beauty of the Champions Cup, and I know that our thoughts, and it often happens now with this new setup, is that it's not as competitive, but things are happening early, and that's how it used to be, and that's what everyone loved. Like, you've got to always be winning, especially your home games, and you've got to secure your spots. But with the current setup, there are definitely sides that are going to lose out that you wouldn't expect to be losing out. But I'm glad that it's happening so soon that so many sides are having to fight and scrap for it.
Yeah. And then next game is Bristol winning the late game against Lyon, 36 points to 34. We thought Lyon actually, the team that they picked doesn't look like it was like all the guns were out for this game. So it's a pretty good game for them to take it all the way. But Bristol, winning it with a drop goal, I think, 3 or 4 minutes after the siren from Callum Sheedy. So that's a really good result for them. And yeah, they kind of slowly but surely getting into their stride here at Bristol. They look like a much better team. Bernard Janssen van Rensburg might be one of the signings of the season. Obviously coming from London Irish, and just further bolstering the Bristol team with Virimi Vakatawa in the midfield. So that's probably the biggest upgrade you can make in your centres. So yeah, I don't know, Shaun, if this says more about Bristol or Lyon, and how far these two teams can go either in Europe or domestically. But yeah, these two teams really served out a bit of a humdinger on Saturday.
Yeah, wild. I didn't expect that from Lyon. I mean, Takira Abrams scored 2, which is great. But I think the conversation was all around the big matchup at 13 with Semi Radradra, the Bristol old boy, against Virimi Vakatawa, the new Bristol 13. So it was quite interesting. What a cracking game. Like, it was going backwards and forwards. I know Bristol took a pretty decent lead, a 7-10 lead, and then 7-10, 28-10 lead. And then it went on, and then they were just kind of trading places. But I thought, at one stage they were 33-10 up, and I thought it was gone. And then they made a little bit of a comeback and leading by a point with the time up on the clock, and then Callum Sheedy steps up and slots it to win in Bristol at Ashton Gate, which is massive. So yeah, in terms of these sides going deep, I don't know. I don't know if Bristol can do that against a bigger side, and I don't know if Lyon can continue to fight back and get in the mix. Like, I don't see it, but hell, man, it makes for a great round 2 coming up,
Yeah, geez, I was just thinking now as you're speaking, Vrain Vakatawa is probably eligible for Fiji in a year or two. Just putting it out there for anyone that's interested.
Massive call. That's a massive call.
I at least believe he's born in Fiji, right?
But
if I'm not mistaken.
yes, but that Fiji don't exactly have a shit 13.
No.
He was the best 13 of the World Cup, him and Jesse Kriel. So, yeah.
I mean, they were already playing Rajaja on the wing because they had to fit into Isova there. They already, they have a lot of options. But I mean, if Vakatawa has played really well in both the Premiership and in this game, I think Rajaja is probably, he would be feeling a bit unlucky that he wasn't player of the match in this game as well. He had an all-court game as he usually does.
But
I'm glad that he's
Vakatawa's journey is flipping incredible. I mean, I think he was struggling at Racing 92, but he was at Racing 92, but then he got a sevens. He was playing sevens, and then Racing didn't renew his. I'm sure it was Racing. They didn't renew it, and he got a sevens contract. And then, if I'm not mistaken, when he made his debut for the 15s for the French side, I don't think he was contracted to a 15s side. I seem to remember that, but his journey's been incredible. Like to go to France and then not being in the 15s to play sevens, dominating sevens. I mean, I don't know if you remember him playing sevens, but he was flipping deadly.
Ridiculous.
And then he went on to be just as deadly in 15s, which is so unusual.
I think this move worked out really well for him, and he's in a team that's playing, I think, the type of rugby where he can show off his talents as well. I mean, you've got really good players all around him with the likes of Shidi and Janssen van Rensburg, and Ibitoy is on the wing. Max Malins is also in that team. So it's set up for Vakatawa to really, put himself back up in those conversations of one of the best, centers in Europe at the moment. I don't know if France does have a policy about, what they do with overseas players. But I mean, look, they kind of struggle when Jonathan Dante isn't there, and Vakatawa was pretty much doing the Dante role prior to Dante coming into the team. So if he can carry on like this, if the health concerns are a thing of the past, France should be at least be interested in looking at him for the next year or two.
Sheesh, that's a massive call.
Yeah. Also, did not realize that Montione is also at Lyon. So,
yes.
not bad options at back three when you have Ioane, Demortier, Abrams, Ninashvili is going to come back into this as well. Like, that's ridiculous.
It's crazy, eh?
Yes. Yeah, I would love to see Abrams and Ninashvili all dancing between themselves there. Next game on Sunday, Sale beating Stud 28 points to 5. Again, not too much to say here. Sale's just continuing to be really, really good. I think they are backing up what they did last season and look like a serious team, not necessarily to win this competition, but they should at least aim to be in the last 16. Studs, like you said, Shaun, earlier, they're probably going to resign from the Champions Cup pretty early. Any other comments about that game, Shaun?
Just that Manutulagi's back. He had a flipping decent game. And the other thing is that they only played Dan Dupree, and unfortunately he went off after 5 minutes. He was injured. I don't really know what is wrong with him. So the other thing is Asher Apoku Forjor, who is a tight head prop. He played for the England under-20s in South Africa for the under-20s. He just keep an eye out for him. I think he played in the Premiership a couple of weeks ago, did pretty well. He came on really early, came on in the third minute because Shonnet went off for an HIA, and I think he won a scrum penalty straight up. He's someone to look out for in the future. But yeah, the Duprees, the other two will definitely come back into the mix soon. So the nice thing about Sale doing so well is they did it with guys still in the bank.
Yeah, and Tom Curry has a long-term injury. So yeah, there's still a lot of quality that you can put into this team. So yeah, I think Sale is got a very good shot at being the second best team in England at the moment. That's good for them. The big game to end off here, two big games this weekend. We can discuss now a bit more depth. Leinster finally getting the monkey off their back against La Rochelle. on the back of a massive Kieran Frawley penalty in the second half and some classical rush defense. A certain Jacques Nienaber's influence is already showing there. But yeah, I mean, again, a very tight game between these two sides. I did think though, when it was, I think it was 9-13 in like until the 80th minute, when it was still 9-13, I was like, we know how this goes. So it's good for Leicester that they actually
movie.
got the win this time.
Yeah, it was a good game. I like La Rochelle were very competitive. You always felt that Leinster were going to come back. They really, I think that was one of their big ones that they needed to win. I think they really needed to do it. Brice Toulon at 15 was very handy. TKB very good. Yeah, it was decent all round. The rain, it was shitting down with rain is probably the only way to describe it. So it couldn't really open up at the end. But yeah, Leinster did it. They did the job. A lot of niggles in the game. There were a couple of yellow cards and a whole bunch of shit going down. But yeah, good win for Leinster. And there's definitely Jacques Nienaber fingerprints on there, just little ones. It's going to be interesting to see how Leinster grow.
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to watch the game properly, but just looking at the stats, I mean, it's pretty even. But it seems like La Rochelle had most of the running and attack. They were making the breaks. They were beating the defenders. And Leinster conceded 12 penalties in their own half. So wondering how they didn't get, more points and have more yellow cards and all that sort of stuff. Also heard that apparently the ref didn't want to talk to James Ryan anymore and preferred to talk to Gary Ringrose because Ryan
was early in the game as well, eh?
Sorry?
It was early in the game that he made that call too.
Yeah. So I don't know if James Ryan is listening a bit too much to his old club captain, Johnny Sexton. And yeah, that's probably not how you manage a referee like Matthee Carley. So yeah, obviously these two teams know each other really well, hate each other a lot. So a niggly game with the rain added as well is probably expected. At least I guess for La Rochelle's sake, I think all they need to tell themselves is, yes, maybe you are falling behind a few things, but all the serious stuff happens in a month or two's time. So just as long as they can get themselves through to the last 16, get Gregory Aldred back, get their team fit and firing, then they've always got a good chance later in the competition. I don't think it was a type of loss that shows there's massive flaws that La Rochelle has to fix right now.
No, it's I think it's little things to fix. Bearing in mind that they haven't had the best start to the top 14 either, so they're probably a little bit mentally weak. Or it sounds harsh, but you understand what I'm saying. Like if things, when you really like in good form and you trust the process, that you'll just stick to it. Yeah. So that's still in the back of their head that they're lacking a little bit of form. Was a big shot up against Leinster. I mean, this could really be a turning point for La Rochelle in the season too. It could really change things up for them. So yeah, it's big win for Leinster, but I think it's good for La Rochelle too.
Yeah, just a quality game. I mean, I'm not going to say no if this is the final again. This at the end of the season too. Like they are well matched. They play different styles, but yeah, they seem to bring out the best out of each other as well. So we'll see how that goes later. Then I think easily the most entertaining game of the weekend was Racing versus Harlequins, and that was an absolute ding dong battle between the two sides. Both Gibert and Marcus Smith were absolutely cooking at fly half. Ken Legareka almost like carbon copies of each other as well. Kolisi played a really good game. Dombrandt looked back to his best as well. Yeah, I think that Racing pitch is made for games like this. And yeah, Harlequins winning it at the end, 31 points to 28.
Yeah, wow. What a game. Also one of those games where you thought that Racing were going to stretch it and win comfortably, but they didn't. And it was, Harlequins just didn't give up. And remember 2-3 years ago, Harlequins twice had two of the most incredible comebacks. And yeah, and bearing in mind, the Quins also, if I'm not mistaken, think they got a yellow card late in the game too. But incredible game. I think the biggest thing that I want to talk about is Siya Kolisi-'s involvement. It's his first Champions Cup game for Racing, and he did all that. He was great. He did massive turnover. I think he had a try-saving tackle. He stopped them all very close up. Great break for their try. Incredible game. It was good. It was good all round. I thought Alex Dombrandt was very good. Garrick was incredible, but my standout backline player, without a shadow of a doubt, is Ron Imhoff. He's been incredible. I'm such a fan, but he really played well again. I mean, the guy's getting on in years, and he's still got the pace. He's still got his mind's pretty sharp. So really good. But yeah, Tyron Green for Quins, also good. Was fielding the high balls, running in. Esterhazy just smashing it up. Danique, Marcus Smith were all over everyone. So yeah, it was great. What a game to end round one, eh?
Yeah, look, I think these teams are almost like the English and the French like versions of each other. Like they can look unbeatable for like a 20-minute period and score like points very quickly, and then they can sort of go a bit quiet and then nothing really happens for a little bit as well. Obviously got a lot of superstars, try to play rugby, by giving the ball some air. And yeah, you just saw them going pound for pound in this game and how that went as well. It's gonna be interesting for, I think, on the Racing side. I think they're still getting the team together. They've got a very young 10 who's obviously coming in with Finn Russell obviously moving clubs. So Gibet has to also, I think, start stamping his authority a little bit in the team. Nola Le Garrec is obviously really young, but a really great prospect at 9. So, it's just those connections. And I think what Harlequins did was they had a few set piece moves and a few plays that that could expose Racing, especially in the midfield. Esterhazy was giving Fiku a lot of trouble in the midfield. I think also I love Will Joseph. Any of those London Irish youngsters, he's playing really well. So Will Joseph had a really good game, I think, himself, especially in a game that has a lot of quality in that midfield. So yeah, I think it's a good win for Harlequins. They're now playing Toulouse at home. The Toulouse side that's not really playing in their best rugby, so they could actually get another win and effectively, qualify them, get themselves qualified for the last 16 already. Yeah, we'll have to see with Racing. I think it's a bit of a work in progress. Obviously, adding all of those players into the team to see how far they can go. But there's some moments in the game where they looked unstoppable.
Yeah, they've got the goods. But this win was big against a really talented Racing side. Racing over the years have always had the players, and they've really not gone deep. So I think there's a little bit of something burning in the back of their mind. But this win for Harlequins is huge, and then to go and then get to play round 2 in front of your home fans at the Stoop is massive. So an early qualification is on the cards.
Yeah. Also, very quickly on the news front, Harry Arundel signed to stay on at Racing, which means that he won't be eligible for England in the near future. That he, I guess, rejected a big money move to Bath. Shaun, I think England has to make a decision now quickly about the future of the eligibility laws, because I think more and more players are going to obviously choose, the money and obviously the competitiveness of France or even Japan, over the Premiership, if the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, the truth is, and I mean, I'm sure they wanted Henry in England so they could select him, but I think that he should be pushed onto forward watch. But having said that, I don't think that he's a 15 yet. I would prefer to see him on the wing, but I haven't seen that much about him, and I think he's an absolute superstar yet. I think he's really good and really quick, but he's still showing his age and his inexperience a little bit. We saw it at the World Cup when he played for England, and so I don't think it's a massive loss for England now. Also, him staying there, he would very easily come back in 2 years, 2 or 3 years time. and it really doesn't matter for anyone. He'll miss out on like 20 or 30 test matches, but that's about it. So not the worst move all round.
Yeah, especially like you said, Shaun, if he comes back at 25, 26, 2025 or 2026, and he's a lot better as a player, maybe he has grown the skills that he needs to be a fullback as well, or at least be able to play in fullback, then that benefits England rugby a lot more. I think I think we're in agreement that the top 14 is probably the best league in the world. So yeah, playing there every week, and especially with the quality that he has at Racing, is not a bad shout. I do hear your fraud watch call for him. I don't think he's a fullback. I'm not sure what Lancaster is, if that's the right call in playing him at 15. I'd rather him play on the wing, but obviously you have Imhoff and Abosi as options there, or he plays as like a big impact player that comes on in the last 20 minutes. But fullback, I don't think that is the one that works for him. So yeah, we'll have to see how that goes. Very quickly on Challenge Cup, in terms of South African results, Cheetahs beat Zebre 33 points to 15, which is a great result for them. Sharks
Massive.
thrashed Yeah,
sorry Thala, not many guys go there and win, eh? That's a flipping good result. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not like, Racing. Zebre played a decent team. It's not all their best players, but they played, Vischetti was there, Morisi was there, so it's quite close to their first team. So this is a massive result for the Cheetahs.
Yeah, big time.
So that's fantastic for them. The Sharks beat Power 45 points to 5. Sharks pretty much played their first team themselves. I think the big thing for the Sharks is just getting consistency in the next 2 weeks. So I don't think the Sharks are gonna. Well, I just looked at their team now. Oh, the next game is against the Cheetahs. So luckily for the Sharks, they don't have to travel too far. But I think now the next few weeks is just about them getting momentum.
Yeah, this result is big, but it happened last season as well. The Sharks need to get a foundation, and they seriously need to build on it. So hopefully this is that moment. And to be fair, the Sharks could definitely beat the Cheetahs, but the Cheetahs can also beat the Sharks. However, this is a known entity for the Sharks. So it could be the start of something for the Durban boys.
Yeah, and shout out to Ron Pienaar, who had a great game for the Cheetahs, by the way. Then obviously he's like 81 years old and he's still doing the business. Lions also beating Perpignan away from home. The comeback of Jordan Hendricks, he played fantastically. It's going to be interesting what the coaching staff does now with the number 10 jersey, with Nohamba also playing pretty well there. If Hendricks comes in fully, or how they're going to manage that situation. But the Lions, they didn't play their best team and they handled Perpignan pretty well. It's probably not also the Perpignan's first team. So I think that's a very encouraging victory away from home for the Lions.
It's huge. And Jordan scored 23 of those 28 points, if I'm not mistaken. Superb effort. It's simple for me for the Lions. If everyone's fit, then Jordan starts at 10. If you want to put Nohamba in the side, then he's going to have to start at 9, and you can shift him to 10 afterwards if need be. But another great result away from home. That's the South African sides are doing well away from home, which is so great to see. So good to see.
Yeah. Nohamba, unfortunately, might find himself in another scrum off traffic jam now in Joburg, because Nico Steyn, I think that was his debut at 9, the SA Under-20 player, former SA Under-20 player, and he played quite well himself, and he's, I think, really highly rated. Moine van der Berg is obviously in that squad as well. So it might be very quickly that there's 3 quality 9s that can all, play at the URC level.
Oh man, we do this a lot in South Africa. We don't spread the love, so it's going to be interesting. Just thinking about that right now, I don't think, like, if I had to think of it right now, I don't think Nohamba moves. I think Nohamba probably stays there. He's really sorted himself out. Out of those 3, probably Van der Berg will go, probably, but also he's a pretty much a local, so it'd be tough.
Yeah, it's a problem for later. Right now, I think, like you said, Henriksen should probably play at 10 from now on, and Number playing at 9. And obviously, we now know that Number's an option that can always come back in if needed as well. Yeah, I think pretty much everything else as normal. Black Lion also had their first game, the Georgian side. They had their first game in the Challenge Cup, losing 10 points to 15 against Gloucester. So yeah, hopefully they will.
That's a massive result.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I hope they improve. They keep improving.
The Georgians love their rugby.
Yeah, and it was looking through the team, a lot of players that played in the World Cup as well. So yeah, hopefully they do, keep improving and make a bit of a noise in that competition. But yeah, otherwise we'll have to see how all of this settles in the next few weeks in the Challenge Cup. Shaun, I think finally let's just talk through the Cape Town Sevens very quickly. Not the best performances. I mean, I was there on Saturday at the Sevens. Obviously, the vibes were fantastic. Sevens, the sort of the rebrand of the Sevens, you could see it in full go that it's effectively a festival there. So it gets, the stadium has a lot of activity throughout the day. I think I'm almost a bit more of a old school fuddy-duddy because, I think there's too much happening on the outside and not enough watching of rugby. But obviously, I'm not the target market for that. But yeah,
Fuddy-duddy.
No, to be honest, there's so much like happening. I mean, never mind it's for a normal Sevens, but all this stuff happening like in the concourse of like the different, like there's a beach club, and then there's this almost like a trance party happening. There's this band playing, there's that band playing. It's like, geez, like can we just watch the rugby, please, and eat food? Argentina wins I think their first Sevens it is their first Sevens in Cape Town, beating Australia in the final. Australia, the women's team, wins against Fiji in the final as well. The Blitzboks, the men's team, they fell off in the quarterfinal. The women's team, they didn't really have, they also I think were last or second last in the final standings as well. Not a good weekend for the South African Seven sides, unfortunately.
No, I always maintain that first game on day 2, so that quarterfinal game is always the toughest. Like you've just got to get through it. It's literally win or lose, But yeah, the thing is the Blitzboks, they lost and they lost well. It was quite a wild result to watch that. And then we lost again a little later. So that's something that they're going to have to build on. Just on the SA women, I have a little bit of a little bee in my bonnet. I see a lot of people like on social and are talking about the women's side and just being like, well, this is just unacceptable. We should be doing better and all that. And even someone took a pop at Rassie Erasmus because he's director of rugby in South Africa, so he should be looking after them. The women's side have got a lot better. We are a lot better. We're not getting the results now, but so much has changed. It's hard. It's hard for us to start at a high place. Our women's rugby has been non-existent for like forever. When we always played rugby, and when we came back into the international mix, we had a foundation to build on, where the women's rugby didn't have a foundation to build on. So South Africans are looking at the Springboks and then looking at the women and going, well, you guys should be starting on this level. So it's really hard. But I mean, the Blue Bulls, they've got professionally contracted women in their side. They're the first club side or regional side to do it. There's movement in the South African game in South Africa. We've had more women of our women play overseas professionally than we have in the past. So things are changing. It's just not great at home when you're getting pumped, but Sevens is a whole new area and a whole new game that you have to learn. Sevens is very different to 15s. And once you're trying to learn and get involved in the rugby game, to then go and be competitive at a Sevens game is also challenging. So yeah, my moan is done.
No, I think it's fair enough, and like it will take time to get those structures going for both the 15s and the Sevens program for the women, and I think also just to have a pool big enough that can sustain both sides, number one, and then number two, obviously letting the talent come through, because I mean, we've seen even with our 15s team that the talent is there. It's just a matter of, getting the coaching, getting the structures, getting professional rugby, etc., etc. The one thing, obviously, just to note about the Sevens program is it was last year where Paul Delport resigned as the Sevens coach, the women's Sevens coach, and he basically said that he did it because the SA Rugby structures don't really care about the women's program and haven't really given them
Yes.
the support needed for that. So I'm not saying that that's a Rassie problem. It's
I
probably more
forgot
of a
about
SA
that.
Rugby problem. Yeah.
And didn't we also
But
have issues in the 15s?
with the women's, yeah,
I think we did, coaching
they
wise.
they didn't. I think there was an issue with Stanley Robbenheim and him staying and everything as well. So look, whatever happens, and Lynn Cantwell is in that structure as well to help the women's program, and I guess works with Rassie Erasmus as well. So there is people there, and there is some accountability, and Lynn should definitely bring in the people that she wants to bring in, which I think she's starting to do. So then, yeah, we just have to give these things time and to see if it grows year on year. Are we getting closer to where we need to be? The women, at least, unfortunately, compared to the men, the women are the ones that are qualified for the Olympics right now. So they have a full Sevens program this year, which they didn't really have before. They're in the Olympics at the end of the season as well. So they hopefully can just grow week to week and competition to competition. And then hopefully we slowly but surely climb up the rankings there. But yeah, it is a bit unfortunate because even in the crowd, you can see like that there's still a lot of ignorance around, the performance of the women, and a lot of people saying things that obviously are just unfounded about, like the women's team and where they should be, where we're effectively, I mean, in the men's rugby, obviously we're ahead with the 15s, and even in the sevens, we're quite good. But in women's rugby, we're probably about 15, 20 years behind New Zealand, Australia, etc., etc. So we need to just invest in the program and wait for those results to come out. But it will probably take more closer to 5-10 years before we're competitive, rather than it's going to take 2 to 5 months. So yeah, I think you said it well, Sharky. The structures are there for the men's game. That's why, as soon as we get a good coach and we have a good crop of players, we can win a Rugby World Cup. We can do well in the sevens. For the women's side of the draw, they still need to get those structures before they can perform.
Yep, I'm with you.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how they go. But yeah, congratulations to Argentina. They won. Australia beat France in the final as well. So I think discussing with Sean that the Australian women's sevens team might be the best team in the world right now. They're the current World Cup champs. They've pretty dominant in every sevens competition that they're in. They can obviously aim for the Olympic gold this season. Madsen Levi is probably the best sevens player in the world right now. Yeah, they might be the team that's like the best rugby team in the world right now, and are far away from the rest of their competition.
Yeah, oh man, so good. But as we were chatting and you just said to me, like, there's no one can touch them. When they walk onto the field, you just know what's going to happen. It's a foregone conclusion. So yeah, I don't know what their streak is or how they've been doing in terms of streak wise, but you know that they're always going to dominate, and we need size to be competitive as well. But just looking at the players that they've got, they don't look like they're going to be giving up that throne very soon.
Mm-mm. Yeah. And then, yeah, just some rugby news just to finish off. Staying on Australia, two bits of news concerning them. Mark Nawakani-Tawase, the star winger that's been playing quite well in the last year or so for Australia, has decided to sign for the Sydney Roosters from the 2025 season. So he will be leaving rugby union in the next few years, which is a massive blow. And yeah, I think also a symbolic blow for Australian rugby, obviously with all the big things happening in Australia in the next 2 years.
I think he leaves now and he's back for 2025.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around, that he's still going to be playing for the Waratahs this season.
He will, but then he's going away for 2 years, so he'll be back for the World Cup.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm sorry. I got my fives and my sevens mixed around. Yeah, he plays and finishes up, and then he's away for he signed a 2-year contract. So he could probably still come back for the Wallabies for the next World Cup, and he'll miss the Leinster.
Yeah. Hopefully he does come back if the Wallabies want him and everything. But yeah, that's not good news. They'll have to, I think the main thing is now the Rugby Australia just has to work out how they ensure that it's not a flood of players that leave and it's just a once off, and that they talented players stay. The final bit of news is, Shaun, have you seen that Rugby Japan is about to make an appointment for their new head coach for the 15s game?
Who could it be?
I wonder. It's surely not the guy that said he's not taking any interviews with Japan and denied everything the last few months. But yeah, Australians,
Eddie Jones is so polarizing. And you know that if you intensely dislike someone, you often go out of your way to check how much shit they talk. I saw someone posted something and said, Eddie Jones will be unveiled as the Japanese head coach after lying about it 18 times.
Yeah, that sums it up. He has denied it every chance he's got. And now I'm sure he's going to say something else and have a smile and a wink. Look, I think when Eddie Jones was in Japan the last time, obviously we know what happened in the World Cup in 2015, but the best thing was we had only small bits of Eddie Jones, like a nice little treat at the end of supper instead of having Eddie Jones in our faces every day. So I think for the rugby public, for everyone, this is a good move. I'm not sure if it's a good move for Japan. Yeah,
I think it's a good move for Eddie Jones. But listen, who's going to complain about Eddie Jones going to coach a Japanese club side when he's coaching in Japan now? Come on, guys, have got to sort this stuff out.
I hope for his sake that it is the distance that he needs from like the mainstream rugby public that, doesn't mess up with, his, I don't know, because I think he's always trying to prove that he's smarter than the rest of us, and he doesn't need to do that in Japan. Like, I would imagine that the rugby journalists and rugby public isn't as intense as it is in England or obviously in his home country of Australia. So do your thing, build the Japanese team, a little bit by little bit, and get them to be competitive. But yeah, on Japan's side, I'm not sure about. Australia's just shown you never go back to your ex, unfortunately. So we'll have to see how that goes for them. Yeah, Shaun. We'll have to see how that goes, I think, in general. But yeah, I think we'll at least a lot of the Eddie Jones news stories now will be you have to Google Translate from Japanese, which means no one's going to read them much, which is maybe a good thing for everyone.
That's brilliant. I think it's a good thing for Eddie Jones too. I think it'll be good. I will say I would hate for him to get lost from rugby, like outside of Japan, similar to what happened to Robbie Deans. I would love to see Eddie Jones back in the mix somewhere along the line. But this is a good move all around, I feel.
Okay, well, I think let's wrap it up there. That has been a wrap up of the weekend's rugby, and thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Rugby Biz podcast. We've also have tried to launch a weekly video series. We did our first one just previewing one or two of or at least the Bulls Saracens game this weekend. We're going to try to see if we can do one for this weekend. We'll just see once the teams come out and have a bit of fun with that. So please do give us some feedback as to whether you like it or not, or what we can discuss in those small little videos as well. And as you can see, we're still struggling with seeing each other and reacting to each other's faces on video. So apologies for some of the flubs during the videos as well. We'll get better on that.
The most nervous I've been in yonks.
It's just different. I don't normally see Shaun's face when I'm saying something. So I see when Shaun's face starts to change, I'm like, yes, what am I saying? Am I saying something completely horrible right now?
Maybe it's just my face.
I'll have to learn whether it's the face or not. But so look out for that on our social media channels as well. And obviously, please visit our Rugby Bits website as well. And yes, please continue to support our podcast. And we'll see each other, or we'll talk to each other during the course of the week. Bye-bye.